here in my office today. I've got my trombone. I've got a copy of the New World Translation of Scriptures, which is the Jehovah Witness Bible. And I've got the largest Bible that I've got. We're going to see how all these things tie together this week. So we're starting off in a brand new unit this week. It's called Spiritual Disciplines, Becoming More Like Jesus. We're in the first lesson. It's called The Benefit of Spiritual Disciplines. The passage is out of 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 1 through 10. So go ahead and be finding that. And then the point of this lesson is growth in Christ occurs when we practice spiritual disciplines. So guys, I want to remind you that February 14th, it's on a Sunday this year. It's about 3 weeks or so away. So don't forget, okay, let's start preparing for Valentine's Day. Now, Valentine's Day is a very special day in my wife and in my life as well, because we got married on August 14th, 1982. It was a very, very hot day in Northwest Oklahoma. And so our 6-month or our half-year anniversary is on February 14th. Now, I want you to imagine this. Say I'm proposing to my wife some 38 plus years ago. And I say, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And but here's how it's going to look, okay? So I'm going to see you for an hour or two on Sunday, and I'll probably come by your house and visit. Now, unless it's the opening of deer season, or my team's playing early that day, or whatever, something else comes up. Now, in the middle of the week, I might meet with some friends and talk about you, and I'm really only going to call you if something really big comes up in my life. And if it's really, really big, I'm going to ask my friends to call you as well. Maybe an occasional text here and there, but that's going to be it. If I did that, I would still be a bachelor today. But isn't that how so many Christians treat their relationship with God? And we wonder, why do we struggle with sin so much? Why do we always feel defeated? Well, it's because we don't spend time with Him. So then that begs the question, why don't we spend more time with God? Why don't we abide with Him? And honestly, it's because we don't really see the need to do that. We do what we feel that we need to do. Let's say we took a poll on Sunday mornings. We could take this at my church or your church, and it would probably come out about the same. And we'd ask, how many think that spending time with God on a daily basis is important? Most everybody's going to say, yes, it is. Does spending time with God change lives? Yes, it does. Is it necessary? Yes, it does. Do you do it? A few people, a minority of people, I'm going to guess, would say, yeah, I do. So there again, it's not our beliefs, but it's our actions that define where our heart really is. So here's, to me, what it boils down to. Too many Christians believe that spending time with God in these spiritual disciplines that we're going to be talking about over the next several weeks is a really, 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 really good option instead of something vital that needs to be done. So let's remember what Jesus said in John 15:5, that apart from me, you can do nothing. And not that we can't do anything at all, but we really can't do anything of any eternal significance without loving Him, which comes from knowing Him, which comes from spending time with Him, which abiding in Him. Now, a lot of the stuff I've talked about so far comes out of a study I just finished back in November and December called The Life of a Jesus Follower. It's amazing how these studies that we do seem to overlap each other. In fact, when we're done with our Red Letter Challenge, which is what we're doing right now on Sunday mornings, and in fact, we're not doing this series of lessons in our church right now, I'm going to teach this lesson on spiritual disciplines in our Wednesday night service because part of the Red Letter Challenge this week actually is about spiritual disciplines. And so it's going to go hand in hand. So as we start this Sunday school unit on spiritual disciplines, I think that most, if not all your class, is going to have a head knowledge of spiritual disciplines. They know the what. Okay, they know they're supposed to do these things. They know they're supposed to read their Bible. They know they're supposed to pray. But when it comes to the why, perhaps all they realize is that they're supposed to do it. Okay, so let's say you tell your child to do something, and they ask why. Okay, what do you usually reply with, especially if you're a little heated. Because I told you so. Well, that's a valid reason, okay? But it doesn't really satisfy their curiosity. It doesn't really satisfy the question. When the child knows the reason behind the request, he or she is more likely to understand and then complete the task instead of just doing it grudgingly. All right, so and I think that's maybe where a lot of Christians are today. They maybe, if they do the quiet time, maybe they're obeying, they're checking the box. And every week we put out the daily Bible readings for the week. And we put that out on our Facebook page. And it's a good thing. It's a read the Bible through the year. The bad thing about that to me is the checking the box routine. Okay, today I'm supposed to read Genesis 39 through 43. So I sit there and I read through it. My mind's not really into it. And I check the box. Okay, I've done that. I put it aside and get on with my life. I think I would much rather, and I've done this before, just take a chapter of the Bible and read it over and over and over, maybe in different translations every day, and let it seep in and affect me. But anyway, nothing wrong with read the Bible through the year. It's just sometimes that can be one of those check the box things. So in this beginning lesson of this unit, we're going to learn the why before we dive into the what of it, okay? So I want you to think back to 1984. If you can remember back that far, the original Karate Kid that came out. Now, to me, it's hard to believe that movie's almost 40 years old. And Mr. Miyagi had Daniel do several menial tasks around the house. You know, there was sanding the floor and painting the fence and wax on, wax off, and all that. And Daniel knew what he was doing. He just didn't understand the why. And he got really heated at Mr. Miyagi because he didn't understand why he was doing all these tasks when he wanted to learn karate. Well, it wasn't until he understood that he was being disciplined to learn these basic karate moves that was going to help him in a karate match. And that's when he truly appreciated what he was taught. So here's the thing. We're in a battle as well. We're in a spiritual battle. Ephesians 6:12 says that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against what? Principalities, powers, against the rulers of this world, against spiritual darkness in high places. And by practicing the spiritual disciplines that we're going to be looking at over the next several weeks, when we practice those, we're going to be better equipped for the spiritual battle that lies ahead of us. All right, so the first three verses of 1 Timothy chapter 4 talk about such a spiritual battle, okay? It says, in later times, here's what's going to happen. Some are going to abandon the faith, and they're going to follow deceiving spirits, the things taught by demons. That's a spiritual battle, isn't it? People are going to fall for the teaching of hypocritical liars. And the things that God created for good to be enjoyed are going to be forbidden by these teachers. And then in verses 4 through the first part of verse 7, Paul counters that heretical teaching, which was probably Gnosticism. Okay, that was a thought, that was a philosophy back in the day that said the spirit is good, but the physical world, everything about the physical world, the flesh, everything was evil. So anything that contributes to anything pleasurable to the flesh, to the person, must be evil as well. Therefore, can't be good, must be abstained from. Okay, that's where abstaining from marriage and abstaining from certain foods, that's where that thought would come from. Now, it's true that sex and food aren't bad in and of themselves, but sex outside of marriage, as well as gluttony, of course, are sins. And so even those things that are given to us for our pleasure do have boundaries. So sex within marriage, foods, all good, created by God. But these false teachers were calling these good things evil. What does Isaiah 5:20 say? It says that woe to those who call good evil and evil good. Paul says in verse 6 that those who are in the church need to be reminded of these things. They need to be reminded that God created these things. These things are good. They need to be taught these things. Then he gets down in verse 7. And Timothy's told to avoid these godless myths in old wives' tales. And this is what Paul thinks of these heretical teachings, okay? Not even a flicker of truth. Have nothing to do with them. Now, I have to admit that I have done a lot of study and have taught several classes on cults. Their beliefs, how they're similar to Christianity, how they're different, because I find that interesting. Now we must not be ignorant of what others are teaching, but because here's the thing, sometimes similar terms are used. Now, the cult may have a different meaning, a different definition attached to the same term that we would use. So I believe it's important that we know those differences, but we need to be more concerned with biblical truth. Now, only a couple of times in my ministry have I seen somebody come in to church or to Sunday school class carrying the New World Translation. Okay, perhaps they picked it up at a library book sale, as I did this one. Maybe it was a yard sale or whatever. And so I'm quick to point out in a nice way that they don't need this for their Bible to read. And to show them why, I would turn to John chapter 1, verse 1, where it says, "In the beginning the Word was, and the Word was with God, and the Word was a God." You see the difference? One word, one letter makes a whole theological difference in the Jehovah's Witness and regular Christianity. The Word was a God, not the Word was God. So just a quick way to point out the difference there. So to me, it's important to know those things. Now, when we get down to the last part of verse 7 through verse 10, this is the crux of our lesson this week. Now, I've mentioned many times that I was in band. I was a high school band nerd, both in high school and college. And so I don't have a lot of personal athletic illustrations to use, as Paul does when he talks about physical training. But I can tell you this, in a 1 hour concert that a high school, a college band gives, there are many, many hours of corporate practice, the band rehearsal. And then on top of that, many hours of personal rehearsal, the at-home practice. Now let's relate that to a spiritual setting, okay? So in order for us to be ready for spiritual battle, the concert, so to speak, we need that corporate gathering. We need that Sunday school class, that small group, the church service, the corporate gathering, as well as that at-home practice, those quiet time, Bible reading, personal prayer times. Both the corporate and the personal times are going to be those spiritual disciplines that we're going to be studying over the next 5 weeks. Now, Paul encourages Timothy, and then by extension, us, to train ourselves to be godly. And this is where the discipline comes in. Training takes discipline. It does not come naturally. If we want God to change us, oftentimes we want him to just flip a switch and we're instantly changed. Now, it's true that salvation is instant. It's an event. Salvation is an event. However, sanctification, the becoming more like Christ, that's a process. And it's on us to practice those spiritual disciplines in the sanctification process. So this is the why. This is the why of why spiritual disciplines are important. We need to know God experientially. We need to abide in him, to love him, to know him, so we won't be fooled by every internet website, every internet YouTube preacher or TV preacher who comes along. Acts 17:11 mentions the Bereans, who they listened eagerly to Paul's message, but what else did they do? They searched the scriptures earnestly themselves to determine if what Paul and Silas were speaking, whether that would be the truth. So spiritual discipline, just like exercise, it's a choice. So if you want to be fit, you need to exercise. If you want to be spiritually fit, more like Christ, you need to exercise these spiritual disciplines. In 1982, Amy Grant released a song called Fat Baby. And I remember that. It was a pretty funny song. I'm not gonna sing the lyric. I'm not gonna sing it. I'm gonna read these lyrics to you, okay? I know a man, maybe you know him too. You never can tell, he might even be you. He knelt at the altar, and that was the end. He saved, and that's all that matters to him. His spiritual tummy, it can't take too much. One day a week, he gets his spiritual lunch. On Sunday, he puts on his spiritual best and gives his language a spiritual rest. He's just a fat little baby. He wants his bottle, and he don't mean maybe. He sampled solid foods once or twice, but says doctrine leaves him cold as ice. He's been baptized, sanctified, redeemed by the blood, but his daily devotions are stuck in the mud. He knows the books of the Bible in John 3:16. He's got the biggest King James that you've ever seen. I've always wondered if he'll grow up someday. He's mama's boy, and he likes it that way. If you happen to see him, tell him I said he'll never grow if he never gets fed. Don't be a fat baby Christian. Get in shape. Get ready for spiritual battle. Now, next week, we're going to be looking at the first of the spiritual disciplines that we'll be studying over the next 5 weeks, and that is out of Psalm 119, the longest chapter in the Bible. It's knowing God through his written word. So don't forget to pray for your class. Thank you guys for watching.